Okay.
Okay, sir. Now you can start, sir. Before the starting, just I will give your biodata. Good
Okay.
morning, everyone, and good morning to today's webinar on microstructures of cement-based material, presented by Dr. B.K. Vandan, sir, Assistant Professor in a Civil Engineering Department, SVNIT Surat. Sir has completed B in 2000 from Anna University, ME specialization in structural engineering from Anamala University, PhD in influence of water cement ratio and age on pore size distribution of OPC and fly ash paste and mortars from IIT Delhi, and PD from Nang Technology University from Singapore. Sir has 9-year teaching experience, 7 ongoing PhD students working in a concrete technology, total 11 SCI papers published, and sir has reviewer in a many reputed journal papers. Sir has an active initiative in academic committees, as well as sir has worked in a many structural consultancy like L&T, ONGC, steel structures, RCC bridges, and structural stability of building, etc. Now I request sir to start webinar session.
Okay. Good morning to all and all.
Good morning, sir.
First of all, I would like to thank the organizer, Dr. Vaibhav Pawar, for giving this opportunity to present my lecture on microstructure of cement-based materials. So when we talk about cement-based material, a question comes: what is cement-based materials? So it may be a cement-based, or it may be a mortar, or it may be concrete. So when we talk about microstructure, what does that mean? If you see the concrete at the macro level, it is a two-phase material. One is the aggregate is dispersed on the cement matrix. One is aggregate phase, another one is the cement matrix. But if you look at inside the concrete, micro level, so what it consists of? That's what I am going to talk about in this lecture. Okay. So if you talk about the cement-based material, the strength and durability are the very important parameters. So the microstructure actually influencing the strength and the durability of the cement-based material. So generally, if you want to determine the strength of the concrete, what we used to do, we generally cast a 15 centimeter cube and cure it in the curing time for 28 days. After the 28th day, we will take it out and we will do the compression testing test. So in this way, we are getting the 28-day compressive strength. This is the routine way we are doing the determine the compressive strength of the concrete. Otherwise, if somebody wants to know the strength of the existing structures, so what they used to do, so they will go with some non-destructive testing like rebound hammer. So by using the rebound number, so we can calculate what is the hardness, surface hardness of the concrete. Then we can correlate the strength. In this way we are getting. Otherwise we can go with ultrasonic pulse velocity. So even in worst case we used to go with core test. We can extract the core and we can determine the concrete compressive strength. These are the routine way we are doing, either destructive or non-destructive test. Is there any other way and means to determine the concrete compressive strength without doing any test? Is it possible? My answer is yes. We can determine the concrete compressive strength without doing anything. Just if you know the pore structure or microstructure of the cement-based material, you can correlate the microstructure with the mixed parameters like water cement ratio, curing ages, and mean cement particle diameter. So by using these parameters, if you can able to model it, then we can predict the concrete compressive strength within a fraction of minutes. We can determine compressive strength. We can also determine the permeability. Those kind of things we can directly predict. No need to do any kind of testing. So it is very interesting topic. So let us see how it is possible. That's what I am going to discuss in this entire lecture. So the outline of the lecture is like this. First, I am going to give some brief introduction, then microstructure of the cement-based materials, then mercury intrusion porosimetry, then some case studies also we are going to see, modeling of the PSG parameters and what is the implication of the PSG parameters, and conclusions, publications, and finally giving some references also. Okay. So first I am going to talk about the microstructure, and particularly I am going to talk about pore structure. If I talk about pore structure, a question comes into your mind: what is pore? So pore is nothing but a flaw or defect in the cement-based material. So even if I say in the layman's language, it is a minute hole or void. You can see the diagram also. There it is given clearly what is pore. So it is a void or hole in the system. How it is happening? If you are not doing a proper compaction, or if there is a presence of air voids, or if there is a possibility of the bleeding of cement waste, so the voids will form. That is called a pore. Okay, it's a flaw. or defect. This one can minimize. If you are doing a proper compaction, proper curing and all, we can minimize this problem. Okay. So why we have to talk about the pore structure? Actually, the inside concrete is consisting of pores and porosity only. And again, it is governing the strength and durability of the concrete structures. So the failure of the cement-based material is generally happen due to the development and propagation of the crack, and the failure is generally happening where the largest pores are concentrated. So the strength of the cement-based material is governed by the porosity and pore sizes. That's why we are going to study about the pore structure. Pore structure is nothing but it's a microstructure. Okay. So here you can see the magnified view of the pore structure. So actually one cannot see the pore structure through naked eye. So it's a magnified view. Just to explain you, it is magnified to a certain extent. Okay. So you can see some large pores. There are some small pores, and some pores are connected to the surrounding, and some pores are trapped behind others. These are the different type of pores. Among the pore, the interconnected pores are most vulnerable. Actually, this is only causing all kind of durability issues. So one has to study about the interconnected pores. Okay, and if someone wants to characterization of the pore structure, how to do? There are number of parameters one has to study. One is the porosity. Porosity is volume of voids to the total volume. That is the porosity. And what is hydraulic radius? That is another parameter. So it is equals to the ratio of the values of the two porosities of the specific surface of the pores of the material. And another thing is we can also determine the specific surface area. So we can determine the specific surface area of the pores, and also we can determine the threshold diameter. That is nothing but critical diameter of the pores. Then we can also determine the pore size distribution. Among the parameters, I am going to focus on pore size distribution only. So let us see what does that mean, pore size distribution. Actually, how the pores are distributed in the cement-based material, that is called a pore size distribution. There are two types of pore size distribution. One is cumulative pore size distribution. Another one is the differential pore size distribution. In case of cumulative pore size distribution, it is plotted between cumulative pore volume versus pore radius. Whereas in case of differential pore size distribution, it is plotted between minus dV by dlnr versus lnr. So we have to consider any one of these to determine the pore size distribution. So let me explain further what is the pores and how it is dispersed. Actually, there are a lot of research has been done on the pore structure in IIT Delhi. So from the results, Patil and Bhattacharjee have formulated the pore size distribution. According to the Patil and Bhattacharjee, there are three parameters governing the pore size distribution. One is the P, that is the permeable porosity, and R.5 is the mean distribution radius, and D is the dispersion coefficient. Let me explain what is this. You can see the diagram. So there are number of folds are there. So actually the R.5 is the capillary entry radius. The entry radius is called as R.5, and the dispersion D is nothing but the space between the pores. The space between the two pores is called the dispersion coefficient. So if progress of hydration is happening, means the radius will reduce. At the same time, the dispersion coefficient, the length of the dispersion will increase. So okay, so from this only we came to know there are three parameters only governing the pore size distribution. One is P, another one is R.5, and D, that is the dispersion coefficient. Why we have to study about the pore size distribution? Because it governs the strength and durability, and again the physical and chemical resistance against the aggressive environment also governed by the pore structure only. And also we can determine the ITZ, that is nothing but interfacial transition zone, that is in between the cement base and aggregate. So that also we can determine. So if you know these things, we can modify the strength and durability of the structure. That's why it is very, very important. One has to study about the pore structure. Let us see what is the microstructure of the cement based material. So we have to understand this, then only we can understand what is the pore structure and all. So in the cement, actually there are four major components. We are all very familiar. One is tricalcium silicate C3S, dicalcium silicate C2S, tricalcium aluminate C3A, and tetracalcium aluminoferrite, that is C4AF. So among the four components, if you add the water, or I can say the other way, the high density cement is react with a low density of water, then we can get the intermediate density of the heterogeneous monosulfate and pores and porosity. Actually, among the four components, if you add the water, the first or prompt reaction is C3A will react with the water. Then what will happen? C3A will react with water to form the hydrated aluminate will form. So that is called the flash shed. Actually, one has to avoid the flash shed. That's why intensely we are adding the gypsum. 3 to 5% gypsum is added. If we are adding gypsum, then the C3A is having more affinity towards the gypsum than water. Then C3A will react with gypsum to form the heterogeneous or calcium sulfoaluminate. Again, it is not a stable form. So it will again disintegrate to form the monosulfate. Again, it will go to the AFT and AFM phases. So apart from this, the C3S and C2S component react with the water to form the CHH gels and calcium hydroxide, calcium silicate hydrate and calcium hydroxide. During this process, so it is not only forming the hydrated product, it is also forming some residual pore system, which consists of number of pores and porosity. So what are the pores are forming? One is capillary pores. Capillary pores are the originally water-filled spaces unoccupied by the expanding cement gel. Actually, the pores are having the micrometer sizes. That's why it is also called as micropores. And there is some other pores are forming that is called the gel pores. It is forming in between the CHS gels. It is having a nanometer sizes that is called the gel pores. So then we can also find some air voids also. So there are two types of air voids: is there air entrained air voids or air entrapped air voids. So all the things put together is called a microstructure. The microstructure consists of hydrated products of CHS, CH and heterogeneous monosulfate, and also the residual pore system. All the things together is called as microstructure of the cement based material. Okay, this already I explained. So you can see here the simplified scheme of the hydrated cement paste of the microstructure. You can see the left side figure, that is the transition zone, and right side figure is giving the capillary pores. Actually, the capillary pores are most vulnerable because it is interconnected. So all the durability issues are related to the capillary pores only. So you can see here the simplified scheme of the hydrated cement paste microstructure. You can see some of the unhydrated cement particles, and also the CHS gels is forming around the cement particles. Then you can find capillary pores, and again the capillary pores are interconnected, and some places it is segmented also. And you can also see the hexagonal craters of the calcium hydroxide. So these are the things actually forming the microstructure. So now you can see the backscatter electron images. There are 4 images are given. The first image A, that is the backscatter electron image, normal image. The second figure you can see 2 different colors. One is the hydrated phase, another one is the unhydrated phase. That third diagram you can see the binary image of the pore space. The pores are in black colors and the remaining things. The third phase and the last diagram you can see the polygon image of the 4 pitches. All the pores are in the polygon shapes. Okay, so this will give you more idea about what is the microstructure and how the pores are looks like, so you can get more idea about it. Okay, if somebody wants to measure the porosity and pore size distribution, how to measure? There are so many methods are there. Fluid displacement method, helium pygnometer, capillary condensation and adsorption, desorption isotherm, small angle X-ray scattering method, scanning electron microscope, nuclear magnetic resonance, AC impedance spectroscopy, mercury intrusion porosimetry, backscatter electron images. And mercury intrusion porosimetry among the methods is most popular. Why it is so popular? Because the mercury intrusion porosimetry can measure the high range of pore size, like 1 nanometer to 200 micron sizes we can measure by using the mercury intrusion porosimetry. And again, the resistance offered by the cement based material to the external aggressive agents are controlled by the pore entry radius than the true internal radius. Actually, it's the only method can measure the pore entry radius. And again, it can measure the permeable porosity, which covers most of the interconnected pores. All the durabilities are related to the interconnected pores. And again, the mercury retained after the intrusion extrusion cycle will give us idea about the enclosed pores. These are the reasons why the mercury intrusion porosimetry is most popular among the methods. Let us see briefly about all the methods. MIP, the pore size range is 2.5 nanometer to 1 millimeter we can measure, and the principle is based on the Washburn equation, uses the non-wetting liquid, I'm going to give more detail in the further slides. What is the Washburn equation? What is a non-wetting liquid? And all we are going to discuss in future slides. In case of helium inflow technique, we are measuring 1 nanometer to 8 nanometer. The flow of helium with the time is measured. It measures the microspace between the CHS layers. And a nuclear magnetic resonance, we can measure the pore size range from 1.5 nanometer to 10 micrometer. It works on the principle of interaction of the nuclear magnetic moments with the externally applied electromagnetic waves in the radio frequency region, and a small angle X-ray scattering method. Here we can measure 1 nanometer to 100 nanometer. So it is based on the principal measurement of intensity of X-ray scattered by particles. Then scanning electron microscope, we can measure 60 nanometer to 1 millimeter. So the intensity of reflected electrons is proportional to the atomic number of substances in the object and the density of the material. Okay. So now we are going to see what is the wetting fluid and a non-wetting liquid. So a wetting liquid is capable of maintaining the surface contact with a solid. So what is the contact angle? First we have to know the contact angle. Is the contact angle nothing but the angle between the solid surface to the liquid. So if suppose we are having a contact angle less than 90, that is called a wetting liquid. For example, water. If you drop a water, it will spread on the surface. But if you drop a non-wetting fluid which is having a contact angle more than 90 degree, best example is the mercury. If you drop a mercury on the surface of any solid, so it cannot spread. It will just roll like a ball only. You can see in the third diagram, there is a wooden plank. The top of the wooden plank, there is a drop of mercury is there. So the mercury is rolling on the surface only. It is not going on the crack because it is a non-wetting liquid. If suppose you want to send the mercury inside the cracks, you have to give some external pressure. Then only it will go. So this is called a non-wetting liquid. Okay, it does not spread on the surface at all. Unless until if you give some external pressure, it will not go inside the cracks. Okay, so now we are going to see MIP. MIP means mercury intrusion porosimetry. So actually it is manufactured in USA and most of the MIPs are manufactured in USA only. So one has to import from USA. It is costing around 40 lakhs. Okay, the concept of MIP is very simple. Just we have to evacuate the sample and we have to apply the mercury with high pressure. Depending on the pores, the mercury will enter inside the samples. So there is a reduction in the mercury level. From this we can calculate what is the pore sizes. There is a attached PoreWin software that will give you the pore size distribution. Actually this MIP having 3 stations, 2 low pressure station and 1 high pressure station. In the low pressure station we are applying the pressure from sub-ambient to 50 psi. So that we are getting a cumulative individual volume versus pressure curve. Then the sample is transferred to the high pressure station. There we are applying pressure from 20 to 60,000 psi. There also we are getting one more curve, that is cumulative individual volume versus pressure curve. Finally we have to merge both the curves to get the complete pore size distribution curve, that is the cumulative individual volume versus pressure curve. Okay. So these are the details of the particular MIP. So the name of the instrument is AutoScan Mercury Porosimeter and the Quantochrome instrument, and the model is PoreMaster M60. So the pressure is we can apply up to 60,000 psi. So the maximum intrusion is only 2 cc and the volume of resolution is 0.015 cc. Okay. So what is the basic principle of MIP? As I mentioned at the beginning, it is based on the Washburn equation. So actually mercury behaves a non-wetting liquid. So it does not penetrate the cracks or voids. So we have to give some pressure. So the pressure required to intrude, it is based on the contact angle and the surface tension. So according to the Washburn equation, P equal to minus 2 sigma W cos beta by R. Here P is the pressure required to intrude the pore radius and beta is the contact angle and sigma W is the surface tension. So here 2 parameters are governing the intrusion. One is contact angle beta and the surface tension sigma W. So in this case of MIP, we go to do both the intrusion and extrusion. First we are applying the intrusion. We are applying mercury Then we are extracting the mercury, that is called extrusion. So you can see in the diagram, the curve 1 is the intrusion curve, then again curve 2 is the extrusion, but while doing the extrusion, all the mercury will not come out. There is some mercury is trapped, because depending on the shape of the pores, there are different shapes of pores are there. For example, ink bottle shape pores, even though we are applying mercury, it can go up to 60,000 psi, it will go inside, but the same pressure is not sufficient to bring out the mercury. That's why some mercury is trapped, particularly in case of ink bottle shape pores. That's why the mercury is trapped. Okay, so before going to do this MIP test, first we have to determine the constant, the calibration we have to do, and we have to calculate the what is the constant of the calibration cells. This is the cell we are going to use. The head of this head only we are going to keep the samples. Okay, the mercury is enter inside this penetrometer cell. The left hand side figure. I am talking about the left side figure. Okay, so first you have to determine the penetrometer constant. So low pressure station we have calculated, and high pressure station also the penetrometer constant has been determined. So again we have to determine what is the contact angle beta and surface tension. From the literature we came to know there are three different methods of drying technique is there. One is oven dried. If it is oven dried, we can take contact angle is 117 degree and the surface tension is 0.484 Newton per meter. If it is P dried, that is pressure dried, then we have to take the different value. If it is vacuum dried, accordingly we have to take the values. Okay, so there are different researchers given different values. So we have to choose any one of the value for doing this experiment. Okay, so how to do this experiment? The operating procedure is there, so I am not going to tell this. Simply I will explain you. So just we have to apply the mercury, and we have to carry out both low pressure station and high pressure station, and finally we are getting the cumulative intruded volume versus pressure curves. Like this you will get. So for each sample you have to do at least 3 replicates. Then we have to take the average. If you are getting 3 curves like this, you cannot do a simple average. For doing the average curve, again we have to use some software that is called Curve Expert 1.3. It's an open source software. So there we have to use some model, that is Morgan-Mercer floating model we have to use. Then we can take the average curve from this. Okay, so in this way we can determine the forces distribution parameters. Let us see in a case study how one can apply this. Okay, so here there are 5 different water cement ratios has been taken for the cement paste and the cement mortar. So there are 2 low water cement ratios, that is 0.2 and 0.3, and 2 high water cement ratios 0.5 and 0.6 has been taken, and there is one intermediate water cement ratio, that is 0.4 has been taken. 2 different binders, that is cement type has been taken. One is coarser cement, another one is finer cement. The coarser cement is having mean cement particle diameter of 11.11 micron, and in case of finer cement having the mean cement particle diameter of 6.28 micron. The mean cement particle diameter has been determined by using the particle size and shape analyzer by using the theory of transition method, and the curing age also varied. In case of paste, it has been determined for 1 to 150 days, whereas in case of mortar, only the test is carried out up to 90 days. Okay, so one has to cast the specimen like this. We cannot accommodate more than this size. This is a small pellet, 9.5 mm diameter and 23 mm height only, because the penetrometer cell is small size only. We cannot accommodate. There are 3 ways of preparing the specimen. One is one can cast the specimen of actual size. Otherwise, we can take a small drill bit from the actual sample, either from the cube or any big sample. You can take a small core of this size. Otherwise, one can take a crushed aggregates also. There are 3 different ways we can prepare the sample. So in this particular case, people cast the specimen in the specimen size is 9.5 mm diameter and 23 mm height. So the total number of specimens also shown in this slide. Okay, the very first thing what we have to do, so the ultimate aim is to determine the pore size distribution. So first we have to ensure the complete dispersion of the cement. For that we have to use the super plasticizer. So how to determine the optimum dosage of the super plasticizer in case of paste? We know in case of concrete we are using the slump test, but in case of paste we have to go for the Morse cone test. So we have to prepare the 1.2 liter capacity of the cement paste, and we have to measure how much time it will take for a 200 ml of paste to flow through the 5 mm diameter nozzle. So we have to on the stopwatch and we have to measure the time. So how much time it will take 200 ml of paste to pass through the small diameter, that is 5 mm nozzle. So we have to add the superplus dosage gradually, like 0.25 dosage, 0.5, 0.75, like that. We have to gradually add and we have to note down the time. So if you increase the dosage, the flow time will reduce. At one point, even though we are increasing dosage, the flow time will not reduce. So that is called the optimum dosage. That's how one has to determine the optimum dosage of the superplasticizer. Whereas in case of mortar, we have to go for the flow table test according to the IS 1767. The procedure is also given in the IS 1767. You have to prepare the mortar in 3 layers in the top of the cone, and we go to every layer, we have to do the compaction. Then we have to give you a blows. So within this 6 seconds, we have to give the 10 blows, and we have to measure the spread in diameter. So from this, we can determine the optimum dosage of the superplasticizer in case of the cement mortar. Okay, then we can draw the figure also, the optimum dosage versus the water cement ratio. For different water cement ratios, we can determine the optimum dosage. Then finally, we have to come for the casting of the specimens. So if you want to cast, you have to prepare the mold like this, where the diameter of the specimen is 9.5 mm diameter and the height is 25 mm. So after casting, it should be like this. So you have to follow the normal casting procedure. So after that, after 24 hours, you have to demold it and keep the specimens for the curing or water curing. So once the curing is over, you have to remove the specimen from the curing tank and the excess moisture should be wiped off. Then again, we have to go for the hydration arrestation, because we have to carry out the test at the age of 1 day, 3 days, 14 days, 28 days. So we cannot do the test immediately. That's why we have to stop the hydration. Otherwise, even though we take out from the curing tank, the hydration will continue. But we have to stop the hydration. That's why we have to do the hydration arrestation. How to do the hydration arrestation? We have to keep the samples inside a container of isopropyl alcohol. So then we have to keep the entire thing inside the desiccator for 10 days. So during the 10 days, what will happen? The isopropyl alcohol enter inside the samples and it will replace the pore water. Then at the end of the 10th day, we have to take out the sample and we have to keep it in the oven for 24 hours with the temperature of 100 degrees Celsius. In this way, we are making the sample free from the pore water. Now it is empty and we have to keep the sample ready for the testing. Okay, now the sample is ready for doing the MIP test. Actually, the penetrometer cross section should be like this. You can have a look. So actually, we have to keep the sample at the head portion. Actually, we have to keep the sample here only. So it's a 2 cc penetrometer cell. A small quantity of mercury can be injected here. Okay, this is the cross section of the penetrometer cell. It is also very costly. Actually, one glass cell is costing around 20,000. So it is a glass cell, and again we have to handle it properly. So otherwise, it can fall down. So anytime it can damage also. So if you have to take more care. Okay. So this is a original specimens and the penetrometer cell. The head portion only we have to keep the sample. Then we have to keep it in the low pressure station. So you have to do the testing in the low pressure station. Once low pressure station test is over, we have to convert to the high pressure station. So we have to apply up to 60,000 psi. So depending upon the pores, the mercury will enter inside. So there is a reduction will happen. So that we can identify through the attached Borovin software. So finally, we are getting the curve like this: cumulative unit volume versus pressure curve. So then we have to take the average curve by using the curve expert 1.3. We are getting the average curve. Then we can use the Washburn equation. Then you can calculate the pore size distribution parameter. As I mentioned at the beginning, there are 3 things we can determine. One is permeable porosity P, R.5 mean distribution radius, and dispersion coefficient T. If you know these 3 parameters, we can determine the pore sizes. So then we can correlate these things also with the mixed factors like water cement ratio and curing ages. Okay, so this again will give you idea how the mercury is injected. So mercury actually in the voids or vacuum, it cannot go inside in the gravity resistant pores. So we are giving apply some mechanical forces. Like here we are giving 60,000 psi. Then the mercury is entering inside the cavity. That's how we are getting the porosity and pore sizes. Okay, this is a concept actually. Okay, so then we have to take the average curve. For this, we are using the model. Then we are calculating by using the Wassermann equation, and we are calculating the P, R.5 and D. I am not going with this calculation and all. Only I am telling there are three parameters governing the pore size distribution. One is the permeable porosity P, the R.5 is a mean distribution radius, and D is the dispersion coefficient. This way, experimentally we can determine the pore size distribution parameters. So it is very easy. If anybody having the MIP and if you know the operating procedure, so it is easy to determine experimentally. But one has to model also. So that's what we are going to see in further slides. Before that, we can see the nature of the R.5. The R.5 is reduces with the progression of hydration. So over the ages, it is reducing because more and more hydration is happening. That's why the radius is reducing, and again it is asymptotic to x-axis. So similar way, the dispersion coefficient, if you see versus age, it is increases with age due to the hydration process, and again it is also asymptotic to x-axis. Okay. So next we are going to do the modeling. So experimentally is very simple, but how to model the pore size distribution parameters? First we will see how to model the R.5. So for that, a single cement particle in the volume of water is considered. Before that, in the right hand side figure you can see the diameter of the cement is D. Actually it is forming two products. One is inner product, another one is outer product. So the inner product diameter is dA and the outer product diameter is D0. So we are considering a single cement particle surrounded by water. So if suppose you want to calculate what is the volume of the cube, that is nothing but cubic root of volume of the cement plus volume of water. So you can simplify this, then we can get the volume of the cube. So before that, we can see the physical changes during the hydration process. What is happening? The cement particle is generally the irregular shape, but we are assuming as regular circular shape. Then what is forming? There is a inner product is forming, that is a CHHL. Then outer product is forming. Then what is unhydrated cement is there. Then calcium hydroxide is forming. Then finally we are getting the capillary pores. This is what happening actually. The hydration process is like that only. Just I am explaining this by single cement particle. Actually there are number of particles are there, so this process is continuous. Okay. So again, what is degree of hydration? Degree of hydration is nothing but mass of the cement taken and the mass of the cement reacted. This is a ratio between the mass of cement reacted to the mass of the cement taken. Then we can calculate what is the mass of water reacted within the unit cell. Then we can calculate what is the total mass of the hydrated product. That is nothing but summation of the mass of the cement reacted plus mass of the water reacted. Then we can calculate what is the volume of the solid products. That is nothing but the difference between the outer product to the inner product volume. So that's how we are getting the capillary radius. We are getting from this formula. From this formula, I can say the capillary radius is a function of mean particle diameter D and a water cement ratio and the degree of hydration. Again, we have to determine what is degree of hydration. Actually, if you look at the literature, there is no standard formula is available for the degree of hydration. Here K1, K2 are the shape factors. If you are assuming spherical shape, it is 5/6. We can replace by 5/6. So if you look at the literature for the degree of hydration, only three models are available. One is Lambertal model. In the Lambertal model, actually degree of hydration is a function of water cement ratio only. But actually degree of hydration is governed by water cement ratio and ages. So this model is ruled out because it is only a function of water cement ratio. But if you look at the Avrami model, it is again degree of hydration is function of only the curing age only. Again, it is ruled out. But if you look at the K.S. Van et al. Degree of hydration, so it is a function of both water cement ratio and curing ages, because he has given degree of hydration versus water cement ratio for different curing ages. From this, we can extract the data for different water cement ratios and different curing ages. Then we have done the multiple regression analysis. That's how we got the degree of hydration as a function of water cement ratio and curing ages. And finally, you can substitute in the equation and we can get the R.5 as a function of water cement ratio and curing ages. But again, here we are getting only from some empirical value only. But why not we determine the degree of hydration? It is also possible because the mixed water consists of two waters. One is evaporable water, another one is non-evaporable water. According to the TC power, in 1962, we determined the non-evaporable water in the cement-based system by using this formula. So we can calculate what is a non-evaporable water. Then once you know the non-evaporable water, we can also determine what is the degree of hydration. So because 1 gram of cement is having 0.23 gram of combined water. By using this formula, we can calculate what is the degree of hydration. So degree of hydration has been determined for both the cement 1 and cement 2. One is coarser cement, another one is the finer cement. So the degree of hydration is function of water cement ratio. The degree of hydration is increases with the water cement ratio, and also it is increases with the ages, because it's a continuous process. That's how the plots also plotted. Okay. So now from this data also one can determine what is the degree of hydration. We are getting the degree of hydration as a function of water cement ratio and curing ages. So after substituting this in the equation of R.5, we are getting R.5 as a function of water cement ratio and curing ages. Actually, the hydration is a continuous process. So due to the continuous process, what is happening? The capillary pores are segmented. So one can also determine what is the segmentation age. Once it is segmented, the pores are only gel pores. So just you can equate the capillary radius equal to 0. We can calculate the ages when it is getting segmented. For different water cement ratio, the segmentation age is calculated, and what is reported in the literature also we have compared. The Neville and Brooks also given some values. If you compare estimated and reported value, it is closely matches. Okay. So and again the degree of typical degree of hydration also plotted for cement 1 and cement 2. Cement 2 is having more degree of hydration because it is having a more fineness. That's why the degree of hydration is more in case of cement 2 as compared to the cement 1. Okay. So we can also calculate what is the percolation threshold. So for different curing ages, what is the percolation threshold? So that is also we can calculate. It will be very useful for calculating the permeability of the cement-based material. So these porosity values are readily available in the textbooks. Even Neville and Brooks books are given. The gel porosity, capillary porosity, and total porosity formulas. Everything you can get it from the literature. So finally, we can calculate what is the capillary gel pores. So capillary gel pores as a function of water cement ratio. So we can model it as a second order polynomial equation. So we are getting this kind of equation. Then finally, R.5 is a average geometric mean of R.5 gel into B gel into R.5 cap into P cap. So P gel is nothing but ratio of the gel porosity to total porosity. P cap is the ratio of the capillary porosity to total porosity. By using this formula, we can calculate what is the mean distribution radius or R.5. So this R.5 is now as a function of water cement ratio and curing ages and mean cement particle diameter. Then we can also model for the dispersion coefficient. So if you look at the dispersion coefficient, the dispersion coefficient is increases with the increase in curing ages due to the uniform dispersion. So again, the dispersion coefficient is a function of the degree of hydration. So if you expand this as a function of water cement ratio and curing ages, so finally we will get dispersion coefficient D as a function of water cement ratio and curing ages. So this kind of equation we will get it. Okay, so now we can also compare from our formula and what is the value estimated in the experiment. So it is closely related, and the percentage of error is mostly less than 20%. So only in case of 0.6 it is more. So this model is valid up to 0.5 water cement ratio. And again, for most of the structural concrete, we are not going beyond 0.55. So if someone wants to use for higher water cement ratio, it requires further modification. Otherwise, you can go up to 0.5 water cement ratio. Next, you can also see the experimental D values for cement 1 and cement 2. Cement 2 is having the more D values as compared to the cement 1. So because due to the more fineness, the cement 2 is having the more dispersion coefficient. So we can also calculate from using the proposed equation. We can also estimate what is the D values. Okay. So what is the purpose of doing these things? We can now model for R.5. P also we are having a model, and D also we are having the model. Then what is the application for these models? We can determine the strength. That's what I am telling. So all our parameters R.5, D and P all are function of the water cement ratio, curing age, and mean cement particle diameter. If you know what is the water cement ratio of your mix, if you know what is your curing age, if you know what is your mean cement particle diameter, you can determine R.5. We can also determine dispersion coefficient. We can also determine porosity. If you know everything, we can also determine what is the compressive strength. So earlier, Kumar and Bhattacharya has given a relationship between compressive strength to the force distribution parameter. Actually, they have proposed sigma is equal to Kc into 1 minus P divided by square root of R 0.5. But here we are considering for the paste. That's why we are slightly modifying the equation. We are incorporating the alpha. Alpha is nothing but degree of hydration. That's why we are getting this equation. Again, C is the Simin content in the mix, and K is the constant of proportionality. To determine the K value, we have taken around 200 values from the 200 compressive strength values from the literature, and we have plotted the experimental compressive strength versus C alpha into 1 minus P by square root of R 0.5. That's how we are getting K value equal to 1002.6. So now by using this value, we can predict the compressive strength. So we need not do any experiment. Just if you know your water cement ratio, if you know your curing age, if you know your cement particle diameter, simply you can predict what is the compressive strength of your cement paste. Without doing any experiment, we can determine the compressive strength. So then again, if you plot your estimated compressive strength with the water cement ratio, you will get this kind of curve. This is nothing but Abraham's law. What is Abraham's law? Strength is inversely proportional to water cement ratio. So our proposed equation is fulfilling this criteria. It is satisfying the Abraham's law. But if you look at the diagram, there are three curves are not smooth, because what is happening? The higher water cement ratio at early edges. So there are pores are segmented. That's why all the pores are gel pores only. That's why this kind of smoothness is not there in these pores. That is due to the segmentation. Otherwise, it is giving a good agreement with the Abraham's law. Okay. The next, we can also determine the permeability. Actually, earlier Pradhan and Bhattacharya has given some model for the permeability. Permeability as a function of water cement ratio and curing ages. So in their model, actually they have given permeability as a function of the porosity also, but they have taken permeability as a function of porosity in a linear function. But actually the porosity is not a linear function of permeability, because due to the hydration process, so segmentation is happening. So according to Reinhardt and Gauber, so the pores are interconnected. That's why the porosity is having a certain power of m. So now the model is modified. I'm not going the equation. So just they modified. That is called the interconnectivity factor m. So we have calculated interconnectivity factor for the cement paste, that is 2.67. That's how we got the permeability equation. So now you can calculate permeability for different water cement ratio. If you plot permeability versus water cement ratio, you will get this kind of equation. Okay, this kind of curve. So this is also fulfilling the Powers formula. So the permeability increases with water cement ratio. So this is also good in agreement. Okay. So this kind of curve people are not getting after Powers equation. So this is also giving a good correlation, and we can also compare the experimental and estimated permeability values. So you can take some experimental permeability values from the literature, and you can compare from our proposed equation. So by using the integral absolute error index, that is OI is the observed permeability value and P is the predicted permeability value. If you calculate for different water cement ratio, you can get IA index is 8.62. It is less than 10% means it is good in agreement. Okay. Next, we can extend to hydraulic diffusivity also. Hydraulic diffusivity is nothing but hydraulic conductivity to the specific water capacity. So here I am using K theta. K theta is called the hydraulic conductivity. It is nothing but permeability only. Both are same only. Permeability and hydraulic conductivity both are same only. In case of fully saturated condition, the theta will become 1. Then we are calling only K. K is permeability. But if it is unsaturated condition, we are calling as hydraulic conductivity. So that's why we are having a K theta. So D theta is nothing but hydraulic diffusivity. That is the ratio between hydraulic conductivity to specific water capacity. Otherwise, we can write K theta into D psi by D theta. So D psi by D theta is nothing but suction head. This is also already available in the literature. Pradhan and Bhattacharya has given the formula. So now only you determine the K theta value for different water cement ratio. Then you can calculate what is the hydraulic diffusivity. So one can determine the hydraulic diffusivity for both wetting and drying cases. Whereas in case of wetting, what is happening? The larger pores are filled first, followed by the smaller size pores. Such that the least water content is related to the larger pores. Whereas in case of drying, The larger pores are emptied first, followed by the smaller size pores, such that the least water content related to the smallest pores. So you can plot the hydraulic diffusivity versus relative moisture content. So you will get this kind of equation. And again, these equations also matching with the Hall-Littell equations. So it is also in good agreement with the existing literature. So from this, what I want to say, one can determine compressive strength, permeability, and hydraulic diffusivity by using the water cement ratio, age, and mean cement particle diameter. So then next we can also determine similar kind of thing for the cement sand mortar also. So earlier I talked about only cement paste. Cement paste, how we can predict the compressive strength, how we can predict the permeability, how we can predict the hydraulic diffusivity. These things I explained so far. So now we are going to see mortar. Here we are introducing aggregate, fine aggregate in the cement paste system. So once you introduce the aggregate, fine aggregate, what will happen? It is introducing the ITZ, interfacial transition zone. So actually from the literature, there is no standard formula available for the ITZ porosity. So it is not so easy to do modeling. Theoretical modeling is not possible. Only we have calculated the experimental values through MIP, R.5 and D values are calculated. So it is following the same nature of paste only. Okay, so R.5 and D values for cement paste mortar has been calculated. While doing modeling, so it is not so easy because the ITZ not having clear idea what is the thickness of ITZ, and is not having clear idea. So it itself is a research. One has to vary the paste content. One has to determine what is the ITZ thickness, and all, then only it is possible. That's why only the empirical modeling has been carried out. This kind of empirical modeling we have done it, and D also we have done this kind of empirical modeling. Then what is the application? So we can correlate with the strength. The strength can be determined, and what is the concept of proportionality? So we have taken the number of experimental values and we have calculated the K value. So that is 1441.2. So by using this equation, we can also estimate cement mortar for different water cement ratios and different curing ages. Okay, so that's then we can also determine what is the permeability. So permeability versus water cement ratio has been plotted. This is following the same nature of the Powers model. Then hydraulic diffusivity can also calculated. So for both wetting and drying cases. So it is also following the Hall-Littell models. Then we have calculated the integral absolute error index also. It is also giving low value. It is 0.04, less than 10% means it is very good. Okay, so what is conclusion? So from this we can conclude we can able to model the pore size distribution parameters R.5, D, and permeable porosity P. So all these parameters as a function of water cement ratio, curing age, and mean cement particle diameter. And also we can determine the degree of hydration as a function of water cement ratio and curing ages. So by using these models, pore size distribution parameter models, we can calculate what is the compressive strength of cement paste, what is the compressive strength of cement mortar, so what is the permeability of the cement paste, what is the permeability of cement mortar, what is the hydraulic diffusivity of the cement paste, what is the hydraulic diffusivity of cement mortar, all the things we can determine by using this model. So there is no need to go for any kind of testing and all. If you want to do testing, we have to wait for 28 days for curing of concrete specimen, then we have to go for this testing. It is time consuming, but by using this model, one can predict the compressive strength for the cement paste and mortar. Okay. So, but nowadays people also started using the fly ash because we have to minimize the cement consumption also. So now in this case study, we can see the inclusion of fly ash in the cement paste system. So there are 4 cement binders are used. One is F/C ratio, that is fly ash by cement ratio 10, 20, 30, 40%. That is cement is replaced this many percentages. Then we have taken 4 water binder content. 0.25, 0.35, 0.45 and 0.55, and the curing age is varied only 7, 28 and 90 days. Because once you add the fly ash, the hydration will go beyond 28 days. That's why. So it is skewed beyond 20 days. That is up to 90 days we have determined these things. The same routine procedure is followed. We have to determine the optimum dosage of the superpolarization. So same procedure, mass cone test and a flow table test you have to do. Then you can determine what is the optimum dosage of the superpolarization, and also you have to see the compatibility. So polycarboxyl ether based superpolarization has been used in this particular work. Okay, so one can determine the compressive strength also. Okay, that also determine. Then how to determine the degree of hydration? So here it's somewhat complicated because it's having a two material. One is cement, another one is fly ash. For this, so Northern Screws and Narayan Edila has given some model. So according to their model, the total non-evaporable water is nothing but a summation of the non-evaporable water of the cement with the mass fraction of the cement plus non-evaporable water of the fly ash into mass fraction of the fly ash. Otherwise, you can say it's a summation of the degree of hydration of the cement plus degree of hydration of the fly ash. So that's how total degree of hydration has been calculated. So experimentally, we determine the degree of hydration. Again, it is a function of the curing age and a function of the water by inter ratio and F by C ratios. So degree of hydration formula experimentally determined. So it's a function of the mix factors only. So this one can determine the capillary porosity also by using this volumetric proportion. So initially we are taking the cement, certain proportion of fly ash and water. If you are mixing together, we will get hydrated product of cement, hydrated product of fly ash, and also there is certain portion of unhydrated cement, unhydrated fly ash. So if you know these things, you can calculate what is the original volume. From the original volume, if you detect this hydrated and unhydrated product of cement and fly ash, we can calculate what is the capillary porosity. That's how the capillary porosity has been calculated, and also we can determine what is the gel porosity. Then we can calculate what is the total porosity, also calculated. So one can estimate what is the total porosity of the cement fly ash system. So it is very simple procedure we have to follow, and one can determine what is the porosity. Then we can determine R.5 value. Here we cannot use a simple cubic approach for modeling, theoretical modeling. We have to use different approach, that is called a equivalent diameter concept we have to use. Actually the hydrated product of cement, hydrated product of the fly ash, and unhydrated product of the cement and unhydrated product of the fly ash stacked together, that we have to consider as a sphere. Then you can use the equivalent diameter concept. Then we can calculate R.5 capillary entry radius. You can use this formula and you can calculate. Then we can also calculate what is the R.5 gel by using this formula. Okay, so then finally you can calculate what is the overall R.5. So same formula what we used in case of cement paste and mortar, same formula has been used, and we can calculate what is the R.5. So here R.5 is again as a function of the water binder ratio, age, and mean cement particle diameter only. So similarly, the dispersion coefficient formula also derived. That is also function of the water binder ratio, age, and age only. So in this way we can estimate these parameters. Then we can also correlate with the strength. So here instead of cement content, we have to include the fly ash content also. So C plus F factor is taken. The rest of things are same as the cement paste only. So for determining the K value, you have to follow the routine procedure, and we can calculate what is the K value. So we can also determine what is the Abraham's law, whether it is fulfilling the Abraham's law. So we can calculate what is the compressive strength versus water binder ratio. For different curing ages, it has been calculated and it is plotted. It is fulfilling the Abraham's law. For different F by C ratios, it is calculated. So and also we can calculate what is the permeability versus water binder ratio. For different water cement ratio and F by C ratios, it is calculated. It is also fulfilling the Powers model. So hydraulic diffusivity also calculated in the similar manner what I explained in the earlier slides. So this is also fulfilling the Hall-Ital model, and also for a cement fly ash model also it's tried. So here ITZ is coming into picture. That's why only empirical model has been done. Then what is the application we have done? So strength is correlated with the force distribution parameter. Then what is the K value has been calculated. Same manner what I explained earlier. So then we can also calculate what is the permeability versus water binder ratios. So same kind of curve uptime, and hydraulic diffusivity also calculated for the cement fly ash model. So here also we have calculated both wetting and drying cases. So it is also following the Hall-Ital model. So it is also fulfilling. So from this I can make a conclusion. So it is possible to calculate compressive strength of the cement fly ash paste and cement fly ash mortar by using the R.5, P, and D. And also it is possible to calculate the permeability and hydraulic diffusivity by using the R.5, D, and P. Again, the R.5, D, and P all are function of the mix factors, nothing but water binder ratio, W by C plus F, curing age, and mean Siemens particle diameter. If you know these parameters, we can get the compressive strength of the Siemens fly ash space, compressive strength of the Siemens fly ash mortar, permeability also we can determine. We can also determine the hydraulic diffusivity of Siemens fly ash space and Siemens fly ash mortar. So finally, what I want to conclude, this is a case study for a concrete. So in concrete also we have attempted. This work is actually carried out in IIT Bombay. One of my friend has done is, what he has done, he has taken the concrete sample. He crushed the concrete aggregates has been taken, and he did the same procedure, and he has calculated the R.5 D values, and also he has calculated the compressive strength by using the same formula. So and also he has calculated the hydraulic density. So the very beginning I have talked about the paste. Then we have seen the mortar, and we also seen cement fly ash paste and mortar. Even in concrete also we have determined. So from this, what I want to conclude, so no need to go for any kind of experimentation. If you can model these parameters, R.5, P and D. Again, R.5, P and D are nothing but function of water cement ratio, curing age, and mean cement particle diameter. So by using this parameter, we can predict the forces distribution parameter. By using the forces distribution, we can correlate with the strength, permeability, and hydraulic diffusivity. So it is very simple, and actually we are pioneer in this research also. So in IIT Delhi, this kind of work we have started. Even I involved some of this work. So I have published some of this work also in one of the top journals, ACA Material Journal. So there are two ACA Material Journal you can find, Magazine of Concrete Research. So all the top journals we have published. That means the international community has accepted this concept. So I think this work still need to have some further modification. So I'm planning to extend this work for other cement-based material also. So it's having larger scope also. If somebody interested in this area, they can do further exploration also. By studying all this literature, one can do further research also on these topics. Okay. So it is very innovative in nature, and we are the pioneer in this research also. So what I want to finally conclude, so even without doing any test, we can predict the compressive strength of the cement-based material. So only I have covered a few cement-based material. So one can extend this to other cement-based material also in the similar manner. So that's why it is having large potential and a lot of scope also. Okay, that's it. So if you have any doubt, you can ask me. These are some of the references. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for informative and knowledgeable lectures and discussions. Students learn a lot and benefit from 1 hour sessions. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, sir.
So if there is any question, you can ask me. I am available.
Sir, any questions for? No, sir. No, any question in the chat box.
Okay. Okay. Otherwise, they can drop a mail also. So I am available. So at any
Yes,
time, yeah, anytime they can drop a mail if they have any doubt. I can explain. So that's it. Okay. Thank you.
okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay.
I, I would like to
Yeah.
thank Dr. Chinmay Desai, sir. Chodoboi Gopalbhai Patel Institute of Technology under the roof of UCA Talsad University, NAC accredited with the view of educating and training future professionals to lead on a today's competitive environment and to meet the needs of globalization and industrialization by providing the dynamic and conducive learning environment. CGPIT offers BTech programs in a discipline like electronics and communication, electrical, civil, computer information technology, mechanical, automobile, and chemical engineering. CGPIT also offers MTech programs in disciplines like electronics and communication, civil, computer information technology, and mechanical engineering. PhD programs are also carried out by the CGPIT. Uh, the Ukatalsa University have 550 plus staffs, 10,000 plus students, 50 plus collaborations, and collaborations and MOUs, fastest growing and also fastest growing university, eco-friendly infrastructures, job fairs, and campus placement. Thank you so much from Chinmay Desai, sir. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. B.K. Nandan, sir. Give a good,
Okay. Okay.
amazing
I'm
lecture.
signing. Okay. I'm
Okay,
leaving.
thank you, sir.
Okay. Bye. Bye.
Bye, sir.